pterodactyl or Kongamato or flying dinosaur in Africa. This long-tailed, featherless flying creature has also been seen on other continents, including North America and Australia. It's also called a Ropen or dinosaur bird. Perhaps it's related to the thunderbird legends. Call it a Kongamato or dragon or pterodactyl. Now for a sighting in Sudan, Africa, from an email I received many years ago. The words quoted are from the eyewitness himself about his encounter when he was a boy. One evening in July of 1988, when I got to the patio, I noticed something on the roof. I was standing about 10 feet away from it. The creature was perched about 5 feet from the light bulb. I seen it very clearly and got a good look at it. It was very large, about 4 or 5 feet in height, no feathers. It was leathery looking. It had the long bone-looking thing sticking out the back of its head. Its tail looked like a lion's tail, very long, and the tail had a bushy or hairy tip." Unquote. The eyewitness was so startled that he dropped the tray of food that he had been carrying. The noise scared the creature and it flew away. Why does this line on the ground lead too close to the end of the beak of this thing? And why was that little sapling tree broken down just above ground level? Both questions are answered together, and we'll get to that soon. But when might this photo have been recorded, and why does this man have a left-handed pistol holster? Those two things relate to the answer to this. Why do these apparent common American soldiers have rectangular belt buckles? We will get to all of the answers, beginning with the unfortunate sapling. One of the men probably broke it down quickly by stepping on it to make way for the others to carry that apparent pterodactyl in this direction. Why believe that it was dragged in this direction? It looks like the beak may have been dragged as they moved the creature. Why does the line in the soil not lead exactly to the end of the beak? After the animal was set down, the head may have been turned for a better angle for the camera. Notice that this is close to an ideal angle of the head for a photograph. Even the muscle structure of the neck is visible. Modern pterosaurs. We're going to first talk about Peter Beach. He was a biologist, still is a biologist, living in Oregon. He went to New Britain Island in Papua New Guinea a few years ago, and he and Milt Marcy, also from Oregon, had incredible sighting, as well as the natives were with them, of this big pterodactyl, as they would call it. Here's the thing. I called him after he got back to the United States, after his expedition, and this was in the year 2015. I talked to him on the phone and asked him a general question, something like, "Oh, what exactly was it?" And he waited, he hesitated. And then he said, he's trying to think of any possibility that it could have been some kind of bird. And he just couldn't think of any bird that it would be. They had seen a number of birds, of big eagles, when they were there, and it was much bigger than any of those eagles. And it had apparently no feathers, and it had claws on the wings. It's not like most birds. But let's see another example, another biologist, this one in Ohio. This man, he's anonymous. He's a biologist, MS and BS degrees in biology. I can't reveal his name, but in Ohio, he had 2 sightings within a few years. And this is just on camera in North Carolina a bit later. Are they hoaxes or misidentifications or real? When people say pterodactyl, they mean pterosaur. Now for a shocking declaration. Not all pterosaur species are extinct. The Ropen is very much alive, although it is rare and mostly nocturnal. Yet it's living on almost every continent, and on occasion in clear daylight. keep with us and see a video clip from North Carolina. Two of the creatures were flying together. Two others flew over Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, a few decades earlier. Those were also seen in clear daylight. Now consider a third eyewitness.
Something caught my eye to the right of me, and as I glanced over, I saw something that I had only before witnessed in books. I didn't know there were such creatures at all, but it had a big wingspan. It had a very sharp, long beak. I never saw it open, but a long, narrow beak, and then out the back of its head was a crest. I was actually terrified. I know exactly what I saw when I saw it.
Were they have feathers, or was it more leathery like?
Had no feathers.
Which one of these is from a video of a real flying creature, and where do more than 17,000 hours of one man's life relate to that? This is much more likely an amateur video recording of a modern pterosaur than the one from Idaho. I'm Jonathan Whitcomb. Over the past 21 years, I've spent over 17,000 hours on the subject of apparent modern living pterosaurs. So why do I now rate the North Carolina video at 86, but the Idaho video at only 14 on a scale of 0 to 100? I make a rough estimate of the probability that a video is a genuine recording of a descendant of a pterosaur, commonly called a pterodactyl. What's going on? The Idaho video looks like there's a pterosaur, but the North Carolina images on the surface are so fuzzy that we might imagine some kind of bird or bat. Now for details, what's wrong with the YouTube video, quote, "Real pterosaurs spotted over Idaho, USA," unquote? After all, it shows a head crest like people associate with a, quote, pterodactyl, unquote. But look at this weird move. This thing almost flips upside down as it tilts forward. Any real flying creature that can do this would quickly dive down steeply, and yet it makes only a slight change in direction, diving only slightly. Years ago, I had a small video production business in Southern California. I know something about 3D animation models. That's what this thing looks like, a 3D model. And yet many thousands of viewers of this model may still believe that this is a real pterodactyl. But there's more evidence it is a fake. Look near the end of the video where it looks like it goes behind a bush. Notice where it should be partially visible. At least a tiny bit of it should be seen between the leaves. Nothing appears. Now for the North Carolina video. This kind of flying creature is called Ropen. These two were captured on the cell phone of Cynthia Lee in Raleigh in 2017. She had just gotten onto a city bus, which then started driving away from the two flying creatures. She was able to capture them on video, but luck was against her, and she is not a professional camera operator. Cynthia was interviewed by a large newspaper, the News and Observer, early in 2018, and she's not the only eyewitness in North Carolina. In Durham in 1993, Dane Simmons saw an apparent pterodactyl while he was driving. Quote, "Huge bat-like wings, long pointed beak and back of head. I estimate the wingspan was like 10 to 15 feet. I know what I saw," unquote.